minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Ms. McCarthy, for being with us. Ms. McCarthy, I have a couple of questions, maybe a statement and a request. Are you familiar, or how familiar are you with the series of enforcement actions that your agency is working with the DOJ on, using Section 114 to basically find consent, I guess, a consent decree with a number of North Dakota oil companies? How familiar are you with that action?
I am somewhat familiar with it, sir.
Yeah, does it seem like it makes sense to use consent decree or to bully, if you will, my term, bully, and many companies' terms, by the way, bully companies into some sort of agreement apart from a transparent process?
Well, actually, sir, settlement agreements are reached in order to get compliance and make it easier for both the industry as well.
Let me ask, are you familiar with a memo from Cynthia Giles from your office, the enforcement shop, to regional directors where she discusses the EPA's plan of, quote, innovative enforcement to force upon companies the compliance tools that go well beyond regulations and laws as they currently exist? Are you familiar with that memo?
I'm not sure what.
Are you familiar with the term innovative enforcement?
Well, what we actually are using a lot of innovation to make sure that we can use our resources wisely, take advantage of new technologies that are out there.
Okay, technologies such as perhaps FLIR cameras. Are you familiar with the use of FLIR cameras to capture images of methane gas escaping?
Yes.
Sure. Do you know that FLIR cameras do not measure the amount of methane that's being leaked from a?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do you then justify going to a company and saying you're not in compliance based on this FLIR camera, which does not measure the amount of the emission, and then I guess threaten them with a fine of several $1,000s per day since the construction? Are you familiar with threats of fines of millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, even multiple billions of dollars against companies?
I am aware that we have reached settlements with using that as a screen.
You've not reached any settlement in North Dakota with an oil company yet. You have with Noble and a gas company, very different than oil, in Colorado. Colorado, a non-attainment state. North Dakota, an attainment state. My point is this. Here's what's by attainment. You seem confused. That means attaining, meeting the compliance. You're complying with your ambient air quality standards. North Dakota does that. My point is this. This is a state health department issue, in my view, not an EPA issue. North Dakota is a compliant state, not a non-compliant state. Our industry, in response to early notices from the EPA, well over a year ago, nearly 2 years ago now, our state health department, our oil and gas division, which operates under the North Dakota Industrial Commission, which is 3 elected officials, the governor, attorney general, and the commissioner of agriculture, working with industry, came up with a comprehensive plan, a global plan to deal with 100% of the emissions. Your agency, ignoring that rather than participating in that, has picked one company at a time. They're now somewhere around half a dozen to a dozen companies to try and find consent, in other words, admission of guilt of something that I don't believe they're guilty of, by using this innovative enforcement activity. And I find it, frankly, reprehensible. Frankly, I find it illegal. But when companies are forced, especially with $40 a barrel oil to less, forced to either pay millions of dollars in attorney's fees to fight this or comply or consent, sometimes it's cheaper to consent. And I don't think that's an appropriate regulatory regime, quite honestly. And I would rather see, here's what I'd like in the last minute. I want to ask you this closing question, and I'm looking for a really good answer. Will you commit today to, instead of using these 114, this bullying tactic, again, my term, extortion tactics, would you instead work with our state and work with our health department, work with our industrial commission, our oil and gas division, and our industry who wants to comply 100%, they all want to comply, work with them on a global solution that actually reaches attainment rather than a fine or a penalty? How about we do that? You agree to that today, and we'll have a great.
Sir, 114 is an information collection request.
Yes, it is.
I mean, and the tool that you're talking about is a screening mechanism that asks the question whether or not we think there may be significant violations of emissions of volatile organic compounds. And that's why you ask for the information from the companies. I wouldn't characterize it as a bullying tactic.
Well, except when that information is used to try and extort huge fines.
No, it's used to see whether or not they're in compliance, and that has nothing to do with non-attainment. That has to
Explain
do with
that to the DOJ attorneys. My time has expired.
Well, I appreciate you raising that issue because all of us have heard about that issue, and I'm glad that he brought it to your attention.
Could I just mention, and we're certainly happy we are in discussions with the state of North Dakota on this and would love to be able to.
Well, we could save a lot of your budget money if we just let the state handle it. That would be
This time.